UFC Fight Night Des Moines, Sandhagen versus Figueiredo takes place this weekend, and I'm going to go through the entire card, starting with the early prelims, ending with the main events, giving my prediction and breakdown for every single fight on the card, starting with the early prelim opener of Juliana Miller versus Ivana Petrovic. I'm going to go with Ivana Petrovic. I don't need to explain myself. Why is Juliana Miller still in the UFC? Why is Juliana Miller still in the UFC? Why is Juliana Miller still in the UFC? Why is she still competing in mixed martial arts? She's absolutely awful. I watched her last fight. Never seen anything worse in my entire life. Ivana Petrovic is also not that good. However, she seems to have some clue of what she's doing out there. So that's why she's a minus 230 favorite. I'm going to go with Ivana Petrovic. I guess Juliana Miller is tough. I guess she's gritty. You know? But Ivana Petrovic just seems more technical, so I'm going to go with her winning. She's got a reach advantage. She's a bit bigger, so I'm going to go with Ivana Petrovic. And she seems a little bit stronger as well. Juliana Miller seems a little bit frail, so I don't know why they've still got her signed in the UFC. Why, oh why, oh why. But there you go, I guess. Ivana Petrovic is going to win this fight by decision, 30-27. We move on. Up the card to another fight. Thomas Petersen versus Dontel Mays. I can't pick this. I just can't do it. I just can't pick Thomas Petersen. I went into this video like, okay, I'm going to go with Thomas Petersen. Okay? He took down Shamil Gaziev. Now, I wonder what he's going to do to Dontel Mays. But listen, man, Dontel Mays took Shamil Gaziev to a lackluster decision win for Shamil. Okay? He knocked out Andrei Arlovsky on the feet. That's difficult to do for a heavyweight. Aspinall couldn't find that shot. Okay? Let's just be honest. Let's just be honest here. Gee, maybe Jones does beat him. Either way. I don't think Thomas Petersen's got this one in the bag, man. I know he beat Mo Usman. He did beat Mo Usman, which is somewhat of an impressive win, but this is a massive guy in Dontel Mays. Thomas Petersen lost to Jamal Pogues. I know Dontel Mays has had some really bad losses as well. You know, the Hamdi Abdullah one, he was cheating, he was on roids, and even then you could argue that was some kind of robbery. But either way, I know Dontel Mays has been taken down before, but I've seen a lot in Dontel Mays fights. He's working back up, you know? I know Shamil Gaziev held him against the cage quite a bit. Got him down in that fight as well. Did take him down. Did spend time on top. I just don't think Thomas Petersen's going to be able to spend all that much time on top of Dontel Mays. Why am I doing this? But do you not... Please understand where I'm coming from here. I'm pleading with you. Understand my underdog pick, please. For the love of God. I feel like Dontel Mays has got this one. He's just more athletic on the feet. Thomas Petersen does a lot of dipping in. He has no finishing potential with his hands on the feet. I don't see him really... I think Dontel Mays, while they're on the feet, if he stuffs some takedowns early here, or even just gets a get back up moment where, you know, he works up against the cage and separates. And Thomas Petersen does have some decent entries, but I think a lot of that comes down to the fact that he is shorter and stockier. And that can give you like a natural entrance to the hips on a lot of these taller heavyweights. I'm going to go with Dontel Mays. He's been in the UFC for a long time. He's got a lot of experience. I know a lot of it is losing, don't get me wrong, but I think he beats Thomas Petersen, man. Why do I think that? Thomas Petersen has had moments, but, you know, Shamil Gaziev easily finished him in the first round at the end of the day. He landed a good punch on Shamil. He landed a good punch on him. Got a takedown. Shamil got right back up, got back to work, and just destroyed Thomas Petersen. Finished him with, I think, an arm lock. I believe it was. Thomas Petersen actually has an arm lock finish on the Contender Series against a fellow Fatih. But I think Dontel Mays is just... He's hard to just put out there in the first round. A lot of people have tried to do it. And listen, he's made a lot of gritty decisions out of his career. With a lot of guys that were riding like good finishing streaks coming into the UFC. I'm not saying Dontel Mays is ever going to be anything in the UFC. But he's been here for so long. And he's been training. And he's been committed. And I just look at the two of them and I think, man, if they're up against the cage and Petersen's just failed a takedown, Mays is shifting him off and he'll be able to hold Petersen up against the cage. And I just think his shots are going to hurt way more. He's got a, how many inch reach advantage? 7-inch reach advantage on the feet. He's a lot more athletic. He moves pretty well as the fight goes on. Like, I do trust his cardio a bit more than Thomas Petersen as well. Petersen did look good against Mo Usman. It was a very close fight. I don't know if Don'Tale Mayes would beat Mo Usman, but I guess you just can't wrestle Thomas Petersen. You can't offensively grapple against him. He's a little bit of a ball of muscle. He's just a ball. He's just a ball of flab. And it's hard to control that sort of build in the heavyweight division, you know. You just sort of tuck up and get back to your knees up against the cage. And I'm going to go Don'Tale Mayes. I might end up really regretting this, but I think he just moves like he's on the feet. Like, Petersen somewhat looks okay with his feints and his movement, but I think the finishing potential is all there. You know what I actually see happening here? I see Thomas Petersen maybe getting a takedown, and then Mayes just kind of standing up, and Petersen's fat ass falling off the top of him, and then Mayes getting like a moment of top position and going for some ground and pound, and getting a TKO in like round 2. That's honestly what I see happening here. I think Thomas Petersen's good, but I don't think he's going to be able to like effectively control Don'Tale Mayes on the ground. And I do think if Mayes wants to, he'll just get to his knees and stand back up. And I can see Petersen falling off the top, making a mistake there, thinking he's better than he is in his jiu-jitsu. And I just think the finishing potential is all on the side of Don'Tale Mayes. Maybe I'll heavily regret this moment. Maybe I will. But man, you're not ragdolling Jamal Pogues. Don'Tale Mayes is a huge dude. He's a big dude. You've got to have some kind of physicality to deal with him. I know a lot of people have beaten him, and it's fucking disgusting that, you know, he's lost so many shitty fights that he should have won, but I think he's all right, you know. I think he's all right. I think he's okay. And I don't think Thomas Petersen is, and he's just a fat guy. So he has some wrestling, I understand, but I don't think he has the finishing potential. I'm going to go with Don'Tale Mayes. There'll be a moment of his advantage, and I don't think Petersen will be able to deal with it once it gets to that. So I'm going to go Don'Tale Mayes. He's been around long enough. You got to pick up some tricks at a trade, dude. At what point is Don'Tale Mayes going to become a crafty vet, you know? So I'm going to go with Don'Tale Mayes getting this one done via being a crafty vet and not being morbidly obese, even though he's quite close. We move on. Up the card. Gaston Bolanos versus Quang Lee. I'm going with Gaston Bolanos. Quang Lee fought Zhao Rong or something like that, I think his name was, in the UFC, and he lost. And it wasn't the best of wins. He came through the road to UFC, lost on the Contender Series before that against Quinones, which wasn't the best for him. But he made it through the road to UFC. Now, historically, the road to UFC, guys, haven't been too good. I'm going to be honest, and I know this might be offensive when I say this, but this is actually how I see the road to UFC. As much as it's like, you know, and we haven't given the opportunity for Asians to get into the UFC. Cool. I think they just couldn't get in the normal way. So their UFC just kind of gave them an entirely separate way to try and get in against each other. That's honestly what it feels like. It feels like the Asian guys, they go on the Contender Series now and again. They try and fight in the US against a US prospect and get on the radar and maybe get signed that way. But they just don't win when they do that, typically. There are some that are good. Listen, Taylor goes on and does well, but he didn't come through that system. But it seems like a lot of the guys that came through road to UFC, if I were to put them on the Contender Series against a good prospect from Europe or from America or from Brazil or Russia, any of these places, it feels like they would just fall short. I feel like there's going to be a road to UFC in Africa at some point as well to try and compete with the Ngannou PFL stuff that's going on there too. It just feels like they can't get there on their own. So they're getting there via their own little make-a-wish, get to the UFC moment. Quang Lee got schooled by Chris Gutierrez. And when I say he didn't have anything for him, he had nothing for him. And you've got to have at least something for Chris. At least take Chris Gutierrez to a split decision. Like, I think Gaston Bolanos would lose to Chris Gutierrez, but he'll take him to a tough decision where he's landing some shots and it's getting close, and I wonder if the judges are going to see this in Gutierrez's favor. Like, there'll be some moments. I like Gaston Bolanos. He fraud-checked Cortavius Romeus, beat the hell out of him in moments as well, showed good takedown defense there. Aaron Phillips as well. I haven't got all of this on my screen, which is different to normal when you're looking at this. I don't have two monitors or anything, so I'm just trying to remember all of this. But Aaron Phillips went in there against him. He's pretty bad, though. I don't think he's top level or UFC level in any way. But he had some takedowns, but Bolanos had good reversals. He has strong hips. He's very strong for the division. He is quite slow, and I think Quang Lee is a little bit faster. But I like his composure. I like Gaston Bolanos' composure. I think he's pretty tough. And his only loss in the UFC, I know he's lost before it, but his loss in the UFC is to Marcus McGee, who did beat up on him, but he had some moments. But Marcus McGee was just too good for him. But Marcus McGee's very good. I actually think he's going to be fighting Petersen next, which I don't like, but I heard that on some pod. I think Tim Welch's podcast, they mentioned that Marcus McGee had got a fight with Petersen, which I don't understand, but, you know, I think Marcus McGee's pretty good. So, I don't know. I'm going to go with Gaston Bolanos getting a win here by TKO in the second or third round. I think he's tougher. I think he's more durable. He is a little bit slower, and sometimes when he throws things, I'm like, can we speed this up? I'm worried. But he's good, and he reverses position well in grappling exchanges, gets to top position, does damage. He's damage first. Very, very good for scoring if it is going to be a close fight. So I'm going to go with Gaston Bolanos. His record is ugly, which I think is why the odds are so close. But I think he's far better than Quang. So I'm going to go Gaston Bolanos getting this one done. TKO in the second or third round. We move on. Marina Rodriguez versus Gillian Robertson. Now, a part of me wanted to go with Marina Rodriguez. You know, Gillian Robertson, I mean, if it's a close fight with Tabafarici, they're just going to give it to Tabafarici at the end of the day. That's something that we have to sort of come to terms with. She's had some good wins, you know. Polyana Yana, she easily beat, but how much am I rating that? The thing is about Marina Rodriguez, yes, she lost to Virna Jandiroba by being out-grappled, and, you know, Mackenzie Dern had moments on top of her as well, and she's been taken down in a lot of her recent, even Yasmin Lucindo got 3 takedowns over her. I think Yasmin Lucindo's okay. To be honest with you, I'm pretty sure she just had a win over Amanda Lemos, unless I'm thinking of a different Butch Gilbert Burns-looking woman. But I think she just got a win over Amanda Lemos as well. Maybe I will go Marina Rodriguez here. How many underdogs am I going to take this card? Maybe I will go with Marina Rodriguez. Gillian Robertson's good, and I do like her grappling, but she doesn't seem utterly heavy on top. Like, her jiu-jitsu is good, and she's very strategic in what she does when it comes to getting the back. Marina Rodriguez has got a lot of experience at the top level, you know? She had a close fight with Yan Xiaonan, and Virna Jandiroba took her down in that fight, and she was trying to do damage, and Jandiroba got takedowns, so it's difficult to say, because going into this, I was saying, well, I've looked at all of these girls that have been able to take down Marina Rodriguez, so why wouldn't, and I don't think Gillian Robertson is at that level of offensive wrestling. That was my take. I don't think Gillian Robertson is at this level of offensive wrestling. I don't think she's going to be able to get the takedown. But then I was almost thinking, how many others do I need to see take you down before I know that Gillian Robertson is going to try and take you down out there? How many, I can't look at all of these examples of you being taken down and then go, she's not at that level, when maybe you just get taken down by people quite often. But it's not like Marina gets dominated and finished often. So this is going to be a close fight, I think. And you know what? I'm going for another underdog. I'm going to go with Marina Rodriguez here over Gillian Robertson. I do worry about this pick, and I did originally, going into this video, want to pick Gillian Robertson. But I think that she's so shit on the feet that Marina will outland her on the feet. And if she does, I feel like Marina Rodriguez, once she starts getting a little bit ahead on the feet, she starts entering this sort of like flow state. And I'd say that very loosely because it's women's MMA. But against Michelle Waterson even, if she starts getting some kind of momentum on the feet, first of all, Gillian Robertson's takedowns are going to get a little bit more obvious. I'll be very surprised if Gillian Robertson submits her or TKOs her on the ground in the first or second round. If Gillian Robertson wins, she'll out-grapple her to a decision. I think that's how it will go for Gillian Robertson. She does have good finishes, and I think she has like some of the most submission wins in women's MMA history. But I don't see her submitting Marina Rodriguez. She's had Dern on her. You know, we all wish. But she's had Mackenzie Dern on her. And avoided being submitted in some very difficult positions. She stayed tough. She went to the next best position. She escaped against Mackenzie Dern. So you know what? I'm going to go with Marina Rodriguez pulling off the upset here as a plus 260 underdog. There was a time when Marina Rodriguez was like right there at the top of strawweight. Do you think Gillian Robertson's right there at the top of strawweight, nor ever gonna be? Or ever going to be, sorry, should I say? I think Marina Rodriguez is going to win this fight on damage. I think she's going to... And you know what it is? Gillian Robertson has better grappling than Marina Rodriguez, but Marina Rodriguez does have okay takedown defense. I don't think Robertson's big or strong enough to get her down. She's not as Gilbert Burnsy of a women's Brazilian fucking strawweight, like a Verna Jandaroba or a Yasmin Lucindo. So I don't think she's just going to easily be able to just chuck Marina Rodriguez down. The entries are going to be difficult to find because Marina's going to be in the big cage and she keeps distance pretty well. Yes, Marina might have slightly less good wrestling than Gillian Robertson, but Robertson is useless on the feet compared to Marina Rodriguez. And you just can't be useless in one area. So I'm going to go with Marina Rodriguez getting this one done on damage, maybe even a third round TKO. But she will win this as the fight goes on the feet, I reckon. She's had experience. She's been 5 rounds. She's got experience. I reckon Marina... And she's had Dern on her and didn't get subbed. And won. Did she win that fight against Mackenzie Dern? I'm pretty sure she did win that fight against Mackenzie Dern. She had a lot of danger in certain moments. But I think she won. Or should have won. Or very close. I reckon Marina Rodriguez gets this one done. Finishes as the fight goes on. We move on. Up the card to another fight. Ryan Loder versus Azamat Bekoev. I'm going to go with Azamat Bekoev over Ryan Loder. Azamat Bekoev's really good. He's well-rounded. He's a very well-trained mixed martial artist. He's pretty decent everywhere. Ryan Loder has dealt with a lot of middleweights that are like wild and watch out. They might do something crazy like Robert Valentin jumping, elbowing 5'1" Torres Finney to try and get him in the 3rd round instead of throwing a knee. I like Robert Valentin, but Jesus, some of the IQ shown in that fight was pretty bad. Ryan Loder dealt with him, nearly got subbed a couple of times, but Bekoev's a shorter ball of muscle. I mean, look at the way the guy's built. He's all torso. I think he's going to be strong in scrambly positions. If Ryan Loder gets this win, by the way, he's a massive underdog here. Bekoev is minus 395. Ended up dealing with Zachary Reese, putting him out in the 1st round, and then the ref came in for a people's elbow and finished off Zachary Reese again. 2 KOs in one finish. Now, if you ain't seen it, watch back Zachary Reese versus Azamat Bekoev. Azamat Bekoev puts him out by TKO-ish, and the referee jumps in and elbow ground and pounds. People's elbow ground and pounds. Zachary Reese out cold again. Slams his head into the canvas, sorry. Just jumps on him and pushes his head into the canvas and KOs him out cold for good. Crazy for Zachary Reese. But I'm going to go Azamat Bekoev. Trains well. I know he trains at AT2. He's very good. He's a little short on reach, but I think he's more well-rounded than Ryan Loder. Ryan Loder's got good grappling, but I'm going to go with Azamat Bekoev. I'm going to go with Azamat Bekoev getting this one done. I think Loder's going to get hit a little bit here. He's lost on the regional scene by split decision to a guy. Can't remember his name, but Troy. His name's Troy something. I watched the fight. And he got, once it became a bit of an MMA fight and shots started getting thrown, all of a sudden he's not so dominant. So I'm going to say that Bekoev makes this a pretty tricky MMA bout for him. And that might be just a little bit too much for Ryan Loder. So I'm going to go with Azamat Bekoev. I'm going to trust in the odds here as well. Minus 400 favorite. I don't see the point in picking Ryan Loder here. But he is good value. I think Bekoev should be a slight favorite or 2-1 favorite. So if you're a betting man and you want to see some value here, Ryan Loder does have some decent value. He's pretty good. But Bekoev, I reckon, gets this one done. We move on. Up the card, Yana Santos versus Miesha Tate. Now, I know this might be crazy. I'm going to go with Miesha Tate. She's a favorite as well. So actually, it's not that crazy. The majority of people seem to be agreeing with me here. Yana Santos throughout her career has shown an absolute inability to do anything on the ground. And Miesha Tate just came back and won. Not against anyone good, but she does have some wrestling, I guess. And she's experienced. I don't even want to dwell too much on this prediction because I'll end up losing my fucking mind. Trying to even break down the analysis for this fight. But Yana Santos just seemed to accept bottom position. Doesn't have the wrestling base. Is a tough woman. She's Russian at the end of the day. She'll throw some like elbows off of her back. You know what I mean? She'll try and do damage in those positions. And I remember a fighter had her back for a ton of the fight. I think Ketlin Vieira had her back a bunch. And she was like punching behind and hitting her in the head from that position. But I think Miesha Tate is actually like a pretty decent women's fighter. You know what I think we're going to see? Dude, Rousey might fucking come back. Honestly. Rousey might... Nunes is going to come back and flatline the winner of Kayla Harrison versus fucking Juliana Pena 2. I reckon we're at a fucking recession of women's MMA talent in the bantamweight division. Honestly. Sarah McMahon might fucking dust off the old gloves and make a fucking run for the title. I swear to God. You know? Holly Holm. I reckon she should have stuck around. I think the UFC told her to go away. I know she retired. Maybe she's getting up there, wants to have a kid finally. Who knows? But, you know, there was a lot of... Who was the girl that got her head kicked? She used to shake her ass a lot. I can't even remember the Brazilian woman. Like, honestly, some of these older women's bantamweights could probably make a comeback in the modern day women's bantamweight division. So I'm going to go with Miesha Tate. I'm going to go with Miesha Tate getting this one done. I think she's a bit more well-rounded. She looks all right on the feet from what we've seen. She came back, held her own against some top contenders, lost, but held her own. I'm going to go with Miesha Tate. Why? It's so bad that there's no evolution here, but Yana Santos... She isn't the evolution of women's bantamweight. You know what I mean? If this was a good up-and-coming women's bantamweight, maybe I'd feel differently about it, but I think she'll just get toppled over and out-wrestled by Miesha Tate, because Miesha Tate has some level of background and has been doing it for years, and I reckon Miesha Tate gets this one done, to be honest with you. We move on. Up the card to another fight, which is Jeremy Stephens versus Mason Jones. My guy! It's Mason Jones. It's Mason Jones from Wales. He's from Wales. I reckon Mason Jones is going to win. He's a minus 575 favorite. I'm not being biased here because he's Welsh. I know. I bigged up Jack Shaw and, you know, he did all right, dude. Umar Nurmagomedov was ducking him. I stand by that, dude. He pulled out against him, you know. We're not talking about that, though. Mason Jones is going to win. I reckon. Jeremy Stephens is good, but he's getting up there. The record speaks for itself, but that record is in the UFC, so that needs to be mentioned as well. It's a UFC-based record, so I'm not going to sort of shit on his record that much. It's an all right record, to be honest with you. But I like Mason Jones. If you don't know the story of Mason Jones, gather around the fireplace. I'm going to tell you, okay? So he gets to the UFC and he chucks around David Onama, dude. Ragdolls David Onama to a split decision win. Runs into Mike Davis, which made me therefore think Mike Davis was this undercover god in the promotion, okay? Turns out not quite, but he had close fights with a bunch of them. Lost some other fights as well. Ludovic Klein did a number on him. It's a good fight. People forget, man. Ludovic Klein, he's a marauder. Either way, Mason Jones is very well-rounded. He's got very good wrestling. He's got the ability to just go to the next position. That's not going to be a factor here, though. He is a little bit slow on the feet and hittable, but he's got a granite chin. He's a big lightweight. He's going to be bigger than Jeremy Stephens. And Jeremy Stephens, I know he just caught Eddie Alvarez in BKFC, but he's been at BKFC in boxing. Mason Jones, I'm talking to you right now. Don't be afraid to wrestle. Stephens ain't got guillotines. He ain't got dash chokes. He ain't going to crack him out for the first time at 40, like Joe Rogan said John Jones cracked out the spinning back kick at 36. So, wrestle a little bit. You can wrestle. I've seen you. But in fights, Mason Jones, I've seen you resort to it. Okay? I've seen you resort to wrestling to get a win sometimes. There is no need to resort. You can wrestle. You can hold him up against a cage. You can make this messy. I think this is a guaranteed win for Mason Jones. Unless he's out there thinking, I'm back in the UFC. It's time to put on a show and reintroduce myself by brawling with Jeremy Stephens. He can do that and win. And if he does, he probably will win because he's not the fastest, but he's well trained and he's very technical as well. But I reckon he's got this one. I think he's got this one over Jeremy Stephens. And mainly because Jeremy Stephens is getting up there in age and he's been doing boxing and BKFC for the past few years. He has not been wrestling. He has not been grappling at all. And if he thinks he's going to go back to that at fucking 40 and just pick up wrestling again in the gym. If he's doing that full-time in the gym right now, he's going to get in some trouble here because he's probably going to be showing up with some kind of injury, probably tweak his back at some point. I think if Mason Jones goes out there, and when he does have Jeremy Stephens back up against a cage, he likes to throw a spinning back kick or a wheel kick. He has a taekwondo background. I don't like when he does it, but if he wants to do that to sort of get Stephens backing up early, like, oh shit, this guy's going for some wild shit, I'll back up. Once you get into the cage, we can work there. We can drag him down. We can get to the back. We can drag him from there. And I think that Mason Jones will win this fight by TKO on the ground. Mason Jones got cut from the UFC, went against like a lot of prospects on the regional scene afterwards, and just beat him up. He was like smurfing on him. You know what I mean? Like, he came down from the UFC. They put a bunch of guys up against him as like the former UFC guy, and he just beat the fuck out of him. So I'm going to go with Mason Jones getting this one done. He may get hit a few times. It may get worrying, but I reckon he'll tough it out and he'll drag this into a bit of a brawl. No, I think he'll make this a bit gritty, and I think he'll win the fight with his grappling eventually. I reckon. I don't see Jeremy Stephens being able to do anything on the ground against him, so I'm going to go Mason Jones. He's a minus 575 favorite. I reckon he should be like a 3-1 favorite. I don't think it should be that egregious, but I think they're taking into account this guy's been doing BKFC and boxing. You don't just pick back up MMA against someone who's been grinding to get back into the UFC. So I'm going to go with Mason Jones. His second UFC run will be kicked off with a good start. We move on. Cameron Smotherman versus Serhi Sidey. I'm going to go with Cameron Smotherman. Not because some random account over the past year or so has been donating saying, I'm Cameron Smotherman and my fight's going to be coming up. And I beat Jake Hadley, you watch me beat Jake Hadley, and I watched the channel and I'm a bit of a fan. I don't know if that's true. If that's someone faking it, please pretend to be someone better. Like, I'm just going to be real. So it could really be Cameron Smotherman. Oh my God, I'm having flashbacks, guys. The sad music's playing in my head. Sorry, I'd seen him everywhere, you know? But I reckon Cameron Smotherman's going to win. I did want to pick Serhi Sidey, but I was rewatching his fight with Garrett Armfield. He fucking lost. How do you get that decision win? But he does do damage, actually. You know what? Maybe he did win that third round on damage. He just looks worried on his face. You know? He looks like he's wincing at something already. He slows down. He throws with a lot of power in round one, and Cameron Smotherman did get knocked out on the Contender Series early. First time competing in front of the UFC staff, you know, all of the stakes are on the line. He gets caught by Grigor Furlampu. I'm not even over-exaggerating the name. Grigoriu Furlampu. I swear to God, that's honestly something like the guy's name that beat him. Got caught, got put down, got finished. Serhi Sidey's last TKO was like a very, very disastrously early stoppage against Ramon Tavares. And he ended up losing the rematch that he arguably could have won, but they brawled. He throws with so much power, Serhi Sidey. But the reason why I'm going to go with Cameron Smotherman is this. On short notice when he fought Jake Hadley, and Jake Hadley took that fight on short notice as well, you know, it's switch up of opponents, he gets into the UFC. He actually went on a bit of like a really composed cruise control victory. And I know that Jake Hadley's not like the physical presence at bantamweight that a 5'11" Serhi Sidey is. But Jake Hadley's pretty good. I always think he's well trained. Like, he boxes well. He kicks pretty well. He grapples pretty well. It's just sometimes he gets out-muscled, or sometimes he gets outdone, or he gets clipped on the chin, or even in the Smotherman fight, he got a point deduction. So, but I reckon Cameron Smotherman's pretty good. And he works the body very well, which is a very important thing. He moves forward well. He works the body very well. He gets straight shots off to the body quite a lot. And I like that he works the body. I think once we get through a danger of round one, Serhi Sidey might finish him in round one. There's a chance. But if we can get through the danger of round one, I honestly think he'll be on cruise control against Serhi Sidey, walking him down, cutting off the cage, and just ripping shots and finishing to the body. Or starting to the body and finishing up top. Serhi Sidey, I've watched both fights, Ramon Tavares and against, most recently, Garrett Armfield. When they threw shots at him and finally closed the distance to go at him, he loves it on his own terms, by the way, Serhi Sidey. He likes teeping and kicking at range and throwing shots at range and trying to take your head off. It doesn't often work, but he tries. When they start pouring on pressure and actually getting to him and going for him in combination and trying to back him up and throw, he seems to just cover up. He just covers up. He doesn't like cover, big counter shot. He doesn't do that. It's all his way, or he just won't entertain the exchange. That's something I've noticed from him, and that's where I think Cameron Smotherman can do well, is if he has Serhi Sidey backing up and he finally starts going in the second and third round, Serhi Sidey just covers. He just covers up and backs up. If that happens, I reckon Cameron Smotherman's going to get onto him. He's going to find the TKO. No, he's not going to find the TKO. He's going to find the body shots. And from what we've seen in Serhi Sidey's career so far, he does slow down. He's a massive bantamweight, 5'11", and he's not built like Sandhagen. He's actually pretty fucking strong for the division. And he throws like nothing like Sandhagen throws. We'll get to Sandhagen in a second. But I reckon that Cameron Smotherman's actually going to win this fight as the fight goes on. I'm going to say 29-28, Cameron Smotherman. Towards the halfway point in the second round, you will see him start to get momentum. And then in the third round, I think it's going to be somewhat one-way traffic for Cameron Smotherman. He's got good grappling. He lost a lot of his early fights in his career, but other than that, he just got caught once against someone on the Contender Series and got put away. Other than that, he's won all of his other fights. He lost a lot of his earlier fights. I think he was at some point in his career, I think he was something like 2-3 or something. So other than that, he's been on a bit of a win streak. So I reckon I'm going to go with Cameron Smotherman. I'm going to go with Cameron Smotherman to win this as the fight goes on. 29-28, decision win based on the last 2 rounds. And he's an underdog, a slight underdog. This is pretty evens, but he's the slight underdog. So that's another underdog here. We move on. Up the card, Montel Jackson versus Daniel Marcos. I'm going with Montel Jackson. I reckon there is a world, and if you rewatch the fights, you will understand. Montel Jackson's only losses in the UFC are to Ricky Simone and Brett Johns. If they were scored now, maybe not the Ricky Simone fight, because he did get taken down a lot in that fight in the early rounds. If they were scored now, people would be screaming robbery. I reckon, with the current understanding, because of course Brett Johns and Ricky Simone aren't Dagestanis, so therefore their grappling means less to the judges for some fucking reason. I reckon Montel Jackson's going to dust up Daniel Marcos here. I reckon Daniel Marcos hasn't really won the last few of his fights. So he's good, and I think he's quite underrated, but I don't think he wins this against Montel Jackson. Montel Jackson, I think he's had something like 10 fights in the UFC, okay? And he's knocked out a few, let me make my fucking point first. 12 fights, I think he's had like 10 fights in the UFC, maybe 9 or 8 fights in the UFC. He's lost 2 of them, and both of them, I don't think he really lost. The Ricky Simone fight, I understand maybe because he didn't do that much, and he was getting taken down, but he was working him in the clinch, you know what I mean? But I get it. Ricky Simone fight, okay, cool. Other than that, he's only really lost to Brett Johns, and he arguably did more damage, but Brett Johns was dragging him down, and he was getting back up, and he got dragged down again, and he got back up. He's never been held down and pinned to the canvas, you know? He's never had that done to him. He's been dragged down a lot, but he gets back up. Even his fraud checks, you're like, damn, the guy who fraud checked him's lucky to get out of that one alive. I swear, that's honestly the consensus you'll come to. Montel Jackson, I actually have a video from like 5 years ago on my channel. 6 years ago. That's how long Montel Jackson's been in the UFC. He's very inactive, which means when he's showing up, he's fucking healthy. That's what that tells me. I've had a video on my channel about 6 years ago. I think it was in 2019, 2018, where I made a prospect spotlight video for Montel Jackson. Watch out, bantamweights. Montel Jackson's on the scene. Massive hands, by the way. You might not be able to tell by the picture, but apparently he has the same glove size as Brock Lesnar. 75-inch reach in the bantamweight division. He's pretty tall as well, and he's pretty built, okay? I reckon he deals with Daniel Marcos. He just knocked out Damon Blackshear in his last fight. Knocked him out immediately in the first round. And it's not like some, like, Peyton Tabet knocking out Yanis Gamori. Like, Damon Blackshear is pretty good, and he smoked him down the pipe and put him away, you know? And I reckon Montel Jackson is going to score a KO here. Marcos is good. He's tough. He moves well laterally, which could be a problem for Montel Jackson because he's all linear. You know, he's straight down the pipe, right down the pipe, moving, finding his shot, pull back, counter right hand, finding his shot. But at the end of the day, Daniel Marcos doesn't have a significant enough grappling threat to deal with Montel Jackson. nor is he powerful enough on the feet to give him something to fear. So I think Montel Jackson will like very, almost with like a look like Daniel Marcos is being a nuisance to him on his face. Like he'll have this very composed look on his face, and I reckon he'll find a TKO late in round 1 or in round 2 over Daniel Marcos. I've got Montel Jackson getting this one done, and I think he wins it by TKO. I think he's very good, and he's only a minus 198 favorite, which is a weird set of odds, minus 198, but I reckon he should be a bit more. I think he should be a 250, a minus 250, something along those lines. So I think that's good value on Montel Jackson, to be honest with you. He's very good. And he's been smoking people, you know? Look what he did to Reinier. I'm joking. It's Reinier, but he destroyed him in the first round. You know what I mean? He don't get fraud checks by no crafty vet. I'm going with Montel Jackson getting this one done. Late first round TKO or second round TKO. Other than I worry about his chances going 5 rounds eventually because of how explosive he is and how fast he is. And he does slow down sometimes. I don't see any weakness in his game. I really don't. So I'm going to go with Montel Jackson. Marcos is good, but Davey Grant fucking beat you, dude. Montel Jackson gets this one done. We move on. Up the card, Santiago Ponzinibbio versus Daniel Rodriguez. I'm going to go with Santiago Ponzinibbio. I think Daniel Rodriguez, and here's the difference between the two. And I'm going to sort of use this to preface the rest of my argument on this fight. I believe that Santiago Ponzinibbio is a lifelong martial artist that's in the UFC and has had close fights against, like, Jeff Neal couldn't deal with him. It was a very close fight. He lost, but it was a very close fight, and he got takedowns here and there. Jeff Neal couldn't deal with him. Straight up. He was the original guy that got by Neil Magny. People forget, man. He knocked out Neil Magny face first. I think Santiago Ponzinibbio is a lifelong martial artist. I think, and I'm going to say this very nicely about Daniel Rodriguez here. I think Daniel Rodriguez is a street dude with hands that took it to the UFC. And now it's kind of come undone a little bit recently in his career. Okay? There's been a few fights that he's had where I've been like, what? You're losing to Neil Magny. And not Mike Mallet throwing it away. You're being pressured by him. You're being teed off on the feet by him. You landed some shots here and there, but constant terrible decisions in the grappling exchanges. If anyone's going to shoot takedowns and get them in this fight, it's Santiago Ponzinibbio. I just don't see Daniel Rodriguez piecing up Santiago on the feet and putting him away. He's had a lot of injuries. So has Santiago Ponzinibbio. But I think Santiago had like a blood problem at one point in his career that took a long time to get over. Whereas D-Rod's having surgeries and stuff like that, and back surgeries and this surgery and broken hand surgery. And there was a time where D-Rod was sort of surging up the rankings in the unranked area of the welterweight division. But I don't think he beats Santiago Ponzinibbio. Ponzinibbio is going to slow this down. I think we're going to get some boos from the crowd. I think it's going to be a little bit boring. But I think he's going to be like somewhat even with Daniel Rodriguez. You know, he's chewing up Kevin Holland's leg on the feet. That's impressive. You know, that's impressive. He got caught eventually in the later round, in the third round, and got slept. But he was doing good against Kevin Holland, you know, which is a very rangy, straight down the pipe, 1-2 spammer. And D-Rod's the same, but he's not as rangy. He's not as well moving as Kevin Holland. He's not as youthful. He's not as athletic. So I'm actually going to go with Santiago Ponzinibbio. I think he wins a decision, and people aren't going to like it, but I reckon he wins this decision by getting takedowns at the end of some of the rounds. That's what he's going to do here. He's going to be evens with D-Rod. He's not going to engage. If he's losing the round, he'll stay like 1 or 2 strikes behind, and he'll shoot in for a takedown at the end, get it, throw some shots, round's over. I kind of feel like D-Rod was up, but look at how he ended the round. I think that's what's going to happen here. Santiago Ponzinibbio is the martial artist for life. And D-Rod is, I think, a scrapper that got this far, made some money in the UFC with bonuses early on, but he's met his level. So is Ponzinibbio, but I think he's more well-rounded. You know? I'm going to go with Santiago Ponzinibbio here. He's a slight favorite, and I agree with it. We move on. Reinier versus Bo Nickal. I'm going to go... Now, originally, I was going to go with Reinier. Originally, I was going to go with Reinier Derrida. And I was thinking, Bo Nickal, dude, he's going to get fraud checked and he's going to lose finally. You know, look at the Paul Craig performance. I can't wait till Reinier destroys him and, you know, just makes it gritty and makes it ugly and beats him in the later rounds. Like, that was my take for a long time. But I've been rewatching fights. Man, I think Bo Nickal TKOs him early. I believe in the development of Bo Nickal enough to this. If Bo Nickal were to go out there against someone a bit better than Reinier Derrida right now in the UFC middleweight division, I don't think it ends well for him. I just don't. I think he beats Reinier Derrida. I do. I watched back Reinier Derrida's fight with Gerald Miesha. When I say Gerald Miesha was putting hands on him early with a speed difference, I'm telling you the truth when I'm not lying. I'm telling you the truth when I'm saying this. Before Reinier Derrida got the knockdown at the very end of, literally the last second of the round, he clipped GM3 and put him down. When I tell you GM3 was like sneakily planting hands on him on the feet, snapping his head back with a straight right hand that he never saw coming. GM3 early on. He eventually submitted GM3 in the third round. It was 1-1 going into the third, and live on the odds before the final trip that Reinier Derrida got that switched into a submission, I think it was a dash choke. You know, he GM3 to GM3. And I was hyped about it, and of course he smushed Holland and submitted him. But that's Holland at middleweight. He's going to get smushed by a big grappler. I think Bo Nickal would submit Holland at middleweight. Maybe some trouble, but I think he would submit him as well pretty easily. And Reinier had a massive weight advantage. Bo Nickal's a little bit small, but I tell you, he didn't look that small against Paul Craig, and I think Reinier Derrida's like a Paul Craig-ish sized middleweight. Now, I know Reinier Derrida's quite experienced, and he's been at like top level outside the UFC, but let me finish my point. GM3 was doing very well against him, and he was using very basic wrestling instincts to scramble out of bad positions against Reinier Derrida in that fight. That's a big thing I want to mention here. That's why he won round 2 against Reinier Derrida, is that Derrida would get a takedown and GM3 would tuck up, get an underhook, and just start working up to his base underneath Reinier Derrida. Now, Reinier Derrida would then like throw himself into like a premature dash choke attempt and end up on bottom position and then end up on the feet after that and then go for a throw and flip himself 360 in the air and land on his back. Like, oh, you know? So he's a weird fighter. He's a very weird fighter, and maybe you could argue that there's a DDP quality to Reinier Derrida, which is weird because he's Dricus du Plessis, Reinier Derrida, and it's like they're both Dutch originally. You know, it's like the same. There's the same. I wouldn't be surprised if they are related. Somewhere down the line, I would not be surprised. Okay? But I'm going to go with Bo Nickal. I think he has the wrestling instincts. First of all, Derrida, I don't think gets a takedown on him. I don't see that happening. I don't see Derrida getting a takedown on him. Gordon Ryan, I know it was a bit of a silly matchup where Ryan was trying to pull guard. But I think, like, Gordon Ryan, he's not getting takedowns on Bo Nickal. His instincts are too good. And that was a pure grappling match, I understand. He eventually submitted Bo when Bo threw him suplexed him into the ground and tried to have a moment at the end where it would go to a draw, but he would have like a good looking moment at the end of the fight. And he just disengaged with Gordon Ryan the entire time. I understand. But I really like Bo Nickal's instincts on the ground. I think his wrestling instincts are very good. There's a chance he gets caught in a dash choke. I think there's a chance. But if you want me to be honest with you on the feet, I don't think Derrida's got a shot on the feet. I really don't. He's very goofy, and he throws crazy stuff, and he can like surprise you with his length. How long is his reach? I'm going to guess it's like 80 inches. 78-inch reach. Bo Nickal's got a 76-inch reach, you know? He's going to be a little bit taller than Bo Nickal. But I'm going to go with Bo. Okay? And he ignored my request for an interview. That's how you know I'm being serious. And you want to know another reason why? Was watching through the fight of Reinier Derrida in GM3. There's not much to see from his fight with Kevin Holland. He immediately got a takedown. He ended up in some tricky positions, but he ended up getting the back and submitting Kevin Holland in round 1. In the fight with GM3, he was... and let me tell you this, and this is something that actually separates his striking from Paul Craig's striking. First of all, neither of them are throwing counter strikes. Okay? Paul Craig occasionally would try and catch Bo Nickal with an elbow as he came in. But Reinier is often, it's his way or he's not engaging in it at all. And he's going to try and get a hold of you and get like an overhook when you throw a punch on him by being above you. And use that to like trip and throw you to the ground. Where you can end up in north-south underneath him. Where he can then go for a dash choke. That's his move. And I think Bo Nickal's going to know that. Reinier doesn't move his feet backwards. When you dart in on Reinier, let me clear my nose once and for all. When you dart in on, I'm sorry about that. When you dart in on Reinier, he doesn't move his feet back. When Bo Nickal hit Paul Craig, he hit him while Paul Craig was like shifting back away from the shot quite a bit. Okay, and he was cracking him. First of all, I think Bo Nickal beat Paul Craig 3-0. And I actually think it was a boring fight, but he did all right, you know. Like, he chewed up Paul Craig's leg early on. I think he won 3-0 in the fight. He could have maybe gone for a finish in the late second round or the middle of the third round. He wobbled Paul Craig badly with a shot to the eye. And Paul Craig was up against a cage, like, waiting to get Baralho finished. And Bo Nickal just didn't go for it. I don't know why. He did say that he wanted to go 3 rounds, but if you're in the third, just put a statement on the performance, you know what I mean? But I guess he just didn't want to risk it, and he knew Paul Craig kept looking for the elbow as he came in. But Reinier doesn't move his feet back with him. He just sort of like leans up on his lead leg and just postures and lifts his arm up when he gets tagged by a shot and when someone crashes in against him. And he does that to lift his lead leg up, get it on inside foot position against you, get the overhook on the arm and flip and throw you to the ground from that position because he is weirdly strong in his core. And that's what he failed on GM3 early in their fight, but he eventually got it towards the end anyway, which is why he looked so goofy when he eventually flipped himself to the ground. I don't think Bo's getting flipped to the ground against Reinier. I think with the wrestling as you grow up, you get this like central balance and this fortified structure. Like, you get these fortifications that keep you balanced in certain positions and let you immediately get back to your feet. I don't see Bo Nickal getting flipped on his ass and wondering where he's at. That's just something I just don't fucking see happening here. I think Bo Nickal puts Reinier down and TKOs him. I reckon he does. Midpoint of the first round, he bolts in. Reinier recoils up with his leg up in the air on one foot. And I think he'll get to Reinier and put him away by TKO. I could be wrong. Reinier could make this messy. He could get it done. But I think it's going to take someone with a little bit better instincts and a little bit better fundamentals to beat Bo Nickal in this division. And it will happen over 5 rounds, I reckon. So I'm going to go Bo Nickal. I didn't mind his overhands. And you know what it is? We saw Bo Nickal against Paul Craig and we said he didn't look that good. Okay? He didn't look that good, man. He didn't look that good. I don't think he goes on to become a champ. The amount of middleweights that have made it to the rankings, that have made it to the top 10, that I've said over and over again about them, they look like fucking dog shit with no talent. Marvin Vettori got a title shot in middleweight. I know he's tough. He got a title shot in the middleweight division. He was up against Whittaker. You know? And I know he's tough and he's got a great chin and that's carried him throughout his career. I think Bo Nickal's not that bad and he's very new to the game and he got 3 rounds of experience and I think he's going to get a little bit better. Do I think he beats Chimaev eventually? No. Do I think he would beat a Whittaker? No. I think those guys are going to beat him. In fact, you know what? I'll go on. I reckon a Jared Cannonier could beat him. Like, survive on the ground early maybe, get taken down, who knows. But then maybe eventually beat him. I think a Baralho could beat him. You know, I reckon a Nasadina Mavov is going to beat him. These guys are going to beat Bo Nickal, I reckon. But not Reinier. Not Reinier. I reckon Bo Nickal lands shots. He's fast. He darts in well. He maintains distance well. And we're in the big cage. You know, I know in the Kevin Holland fight, Reinier got a takedown. But in the GM3 fight, when they were on the feet, GM3 don't move around on the outside like Bo Nickal. And that fight was in the apex. A very small small space. Reinier, all he had to do was reach and grab GM3. Bo Nickal's going to be out or in. And the fact is, Reinier ain't going to sting him coming in with any big shots. And I don't think he's going to get the takedown in the first place. So and Bo Nickal weren't even breathing heavy at the end of the Paul Craig fight. Didn't really do much in the fight, but if the pace is even higher, is he breathing a little bit heavy? If the pace is higher than that, is he kind of breathing heavy? I don't see him wilting and gassing here. I reckon he stings Reinier de Ridder on the feet a lot. I reckon he'll tag him clean a lot. And I think his body shots will work as well. I actually think, Bo, if you're watching this, which you probably aren't, but I wouldn't be surprised if some fighters watch some breakdowns of their fights. Your straight shot to the body will work quite well. You've got to watch out for him just lifting his knee up. It won't be to knee you in the face, but he will lift his knee up. But I reckon if you get this sweaty in the second round, you can go for takedowns. But I think your straight shot to the body will work. I reckon when you lunge in and throw the straight to the body, it's going to work on Reinier de Ridder because, again, high guard, lifts his arms up really high to give something in the way of the punch getting to his chin, and he doesn't step back. I don't know if that's how he's built, if he's built like that, but he doesn't shift back. So if someone's bolting in and out, like I consider Bo Nickal a bit of a, on the feet, like a poor man's Jeff Neal. You know, in and out, couple feints, in and out, and then he's in, and he's out. In and out, in and out. He's a poor man's Jeff Neal, and I think that works against someone who don't move off their back foot, who just keep stationary. So I'm going to go Bo Nickal, and I'm actually going to say he drops Reinier de Ridder early, decides not to follow to the ground, drops him again, and Reinier de Ridder like begrudgingly gets back up to his feet with like a bit of a popped nose or something like that. And I actually think he's going to piece him up after that as well. So I reckon Bo Nickal gets a finish. Maybe he hurts him to going for a submission on the ground afterwards. But I reckon he has a performance which is like, oh no, he's still kind of got it. And he is still a prospect. But I still don't think he beats the top guys at middleweight. I think there is a limit for him. But as a young guy in the sport who's taken it as seriously as he is and is the athlete that he is, I reckon Bo Nickal gets this one done. First round TKO. He's had a lot of time to improve since his last fight. Injury free. This is good for him. And he's training at a great gym. So I'm going to go Bo Nickal. And I'm going to say he finishes his fight first or second round. And he's going to crack Reinier de Ridder on the chin a lot. That's my prediction. We move on. Up the card to another fight, which is Cory Sandhagen versus Deiveson Figueiredo. I like how it automatically adjusts for me. I'm going to go with Sandhagen. Now, I'm going to move my face cam for a second here so you can see something on the screen. Look at those fucking odds. Do they know something we don't know? What the fuck are those odds? Like, on a real, what the fuck are those odds? That needs to stop. I swear to God, the odds make us feel like a guy's going to win and just be like, don't let anyone make money on them. That honestly seems to be how it goes. And you know what it is as well? If someone's not popular and doesn't have a fan base that are all going to put money on them, neither of these guys are too popular, but Figueiredo has, for whatever reason, never picked up a fan base, even from the Brazilians, which is just sad, but even when he was champ, they never rallied behind him. I guess they just don't like the smaller guys. Pantoja's kind of picked it up a bit now. Who Figueiredo beat, by the way. Last guy to beat him. Other than maybe Askarov beat him after that. Who knows? But those odds are crazy. I reckon Sandhagen should be like a minus 250 favorite. And I am going to pick Cory Sandhagen to win over Deiveson Figueiredo. There's danger here. I think he will do well on the feet. I think Figueiredo will struggle with a much taller, rangier opponent. That's going to happen here. I mean, the height difference is a lot. 5'5", 5'11". Sandhagen's got a reach advantage. Figueiredo's got pretty long arms for his size. Sandhagen's also got not pretty short arms, but, you know, lightweights typically have like a 72, 74 inch reach for being about 5'10", 5'9" sometimes. So he's not got the longest arms for his height, to say the least. You'd like to see him have a bit more of a reach, like a 72, 74. But 70 inches of reach at bantamweight is still pretty fucking good. I reckon Sandhagen's going to do very well here. And I think Figueiredo's going to get annoyed. And you know what? He might do what Yan didn't. And I think he's actually going to TKO Deiveson Figueiredo in the later rounds. You know he's going to throw some fucking flying knees. I don't think that's going to be what TKOs him. I was thinking about the fucking finishing sequence then. But it's not going to be a flying knee. But he's going to go for some that might land to the body on Figueiredo maybe. But I think Cory Sandhagen is going to like pester Deiveson Figueiredo to a TKO finish. And by that, I mean, at some point in this fight, Figueiredo will have an eye swollen shut. That's the type of finish that I see happening here. He will have an eye swollen shut. He will start grimacing a little bit, that his nose is a little bit broken. And his face is a bit of a mess. Not because Sandhagen is so brutally battering and beating him up. I think it will be because Sandhagen is just pestering him. And there'll be moments where Figueiredo lunges in and misses. And then Sandhagen goes pep, 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 low kick, pep. And just lands like 4 jabs on him at once. And Figueiredo tries to swing back and doesn't get it over the top of Sandhagen's punch. Figgy does a lot of throwing over the top of people's punches. Okay, and he looked great against Rob Font. But Rob Font don't have the footwork of Sandhagen. He plants when he throws. Although he does have good distance control. It's once he's planted his feet. So I reckon Sandhagen will be doing a lot of that. I think this will be reminiscent of like Bivol Beterbiev 2. I hate to bring in some kind of comparison like that. But Sandhagen does a lot of jab, jab on the instep. And then back. And then in again with the right. Then back. And then jab, jab on the instep again. I'm going to go with Cory Sandhagen here. I'm going to go with Cory Sandhagen. He's suspiciously good at not getting cracked by KO blows. That's something we have to say about Sandhagen very recently in his career. Although he lets fights get away from him sometimes, and he does survive some other fights and go to a decision, and, you know, you could say he didn't risk it all, and he didn't put it all on the line for that fight. I don't think he's going to get chinned here, man. He's got a good chin, and when he gets dropped, he don't get slept. You know, he goes down, and he's with it, and he's shifting back, and he's scrambling back to his feet, so I reckon Cory Sandhagen gets this one done. I do. Cory Sandhagen, TKO, round 4. Low kicks are going to be there for him. I just think if at any point, listen, outside of the knockdowns against Brandon Moreno, if at any point Moreno can be doing that at his height and reach, maybe you could argue Figueiredo's improved since moving up to bantamweight. I would just say that most flyweights could compete at bantamweight if they had the physicality of Deiveson Figueiredo. You know, if there's any flyweights that are just too damn big for flyweight, and they're struggling, and they're a top-ranked flyweight with some talent, I reckon, and if they can pack on some good muscle, I think Figueiredo is destined to be a good bantamweight. I really do. And I would love to have seen him versus Yan when he was on his run at flyweight as the champion. And then Yan would and we have that super fight. But we don't get super fights in those divisions because Dana White fucking hates it. I don't know why. But I think Sandhagen's just too rangy. And if Moreno can ever be popping your face back with jabs and moving and making you miss and rolling with all your shots, I reckon Sandhagen's going to do the same thing but worse. So I reckon early rounds of this fight, it's going to be a slow first round. Figgy might go to the body a lot on Sandhagen, might be throwing his own low kicks, but he's going to get beaten at that game. I think he might shoot for some takedowns and get to some positions, but Sandhagen will get out of them. So I think round 1's going to be very close. Sandhagen will have landed more. Figueiredo will have landed a little bit better. Round 2, I think we'll have a bit of a grappling moment here. I think we're going to see a bit of a grappling moment. Sandhagen tests a takedown and Figgy just dives on a guillotine that Sandhagen passes over and Figueiredo's just sort of there. An athletic fucking move from Figueiredo. We're going to see some moment from him like that. You know when he fucking... who was the guy that he had in the guillotine and he just fucking... It was Marina. Even in the third fight they had, or the second fight that they had, where he got finished, he had Moreno in a guillotine and he just sort of like threw him off from on top of him. So I think he's going to have a moment like that where he just throws Sandhagen off of him on top and we end up back on the feet. I think as we get into the later rounds, Sandhagen will be able to do things to Figueiredo at a range and at a distance that is exhausting for Figueiredo to try and keep up with footwork. When Yan gets ahead and he tries pouring it on in the later rounds, he's going right in with a high and tight guard and like looking for uppercuts up the middle. And Figueiredo can work there. He can rip body shots there. You know, Yan's right in front of him. Yan's trying to take the body shot and land back on him. Take that and land back and slip that and land back and grab a single collar, land an uppercut and a right hook. Figgy can deal with that for a long time. If Sandhagen's in the 3rd, 4th and 5th round here, peppering him, he's going to TKO him. So I think the value considering they don't want you to make any fucking money on a Sandhagen bet to save your life, as you can see by the odds. I reckon the value is by Sandhagen TKO, and I reckon it happens in round 4. And you know what I could also see here? With Sandhagen stepping in with some lead elbows maybe here and there, if he does notice Figueiredo starting to go, I could see a stoppage in the corner. I could see a stoppage on the stall, a cut-based stoppage over the eye of Figueiredo, a swollen eye, and I can so see Figueiredo getting asked how many fingers someone's holding up. And the doctor stepping in an Iowa commission, and I can so see that. A doctor-based stoppage, round 3 or 4. Sandhagen gets this one done. I've done this for a fucking hour. Like and subscribe. Thank you for watching. Toodle Pip. I'll see you later. Goodbye. Those are my picks. A lot of underdogs. Good luck.